Okay, guys, well, I know probably the last thing you wanted to see after the intro to another Go Deep video blog is the Minnesota Vikings website. However, I have gone through some Minnesota Vikings training camp information. We are going to talk in a little of an keep your enemies closer type of video blog today. So don't look away. I know it's hard to look at, but we are going to talk about the Minnesota Vikings and where they're at. I don't suspect this is work that you guys would want to do, but I do suspect that many of you are kind of interested in where they're at with many of the changes that are taking place. So I did go through some of the press conferences, some of the news and notes, and of course, as you can see if you're watching, I have up the roster for right now. The Vikings, of course, not updating their depth chart until sometime end of this month. But we will talk a little bit about that. First of all, we know... Obviously, the Packers, with a relatively veteran team, we've been talking about how that can be an advantage for them in the North in particular. You've got the Bears who are still trying to figure out who the quarterback is going to be. You've got the Detroit Lions who have, what looks like a very solid offense, a dangerous, frankly, offense. But on defense, they basically, with Jeff Okudah, have replaced their top corner, but that guy's a rookie. I don't care how good of a prospect he is, and I do think he's a good prospect. And their defense is looking like it's going to be once again lacking with a pass rush. So now you go to the Minnesota Vikings, and this is a team that really, lost quite a few of the old school pieces on defense in particular, and then lost Stefon Diggs on offense as well. So they brought in Jefferson and are looking to retool a defense with the extra draft picks that they were able to get with the Stefon Diggs trade to Buffalo. And so when you listen now to Coach Zimmer speak, it was very curious to me. Now, part of this, I want to say, is because of the situation. We've noticed there's a difference in the press conferences, the Zoom meetings, or however they're formatted, whatever the platform is, with how the Packers press conferences have gone. Maybe that's what was coming through with Zimmer, but he looked relatively questioning about his own team. Now, Mike Zimmer, as you might have seen come across some Twitter, Packer Nation loving to troll the Vikings, they have hired Dom Capers as an assistant, a senior defensive assistant is the official title, and interviewed him. I may talk a little bit about what he had to say, but Zimmer brought him in, and his explanation of why he brought him in was pretty blasé, and almost questioning of his own decision. He basically said, well, sometimes after you've done it 6 years here and 23 years there, it's nice to bring in somebody that's got a different, perspective on things. And that's, a great pat answer. That's actually not a bad reason. But boy, he was very standoffish and sounded really blasé about this team. I've got to be honest. I will give you the quote. In terms of the defense, he said, I feel pretty good about where we're at. But both him and Dom Capers understand, and Dom Capers spoke to it specifically. And this should be a caution, by the way. I am hearing so much Kamal Martin buzz right now, and I feel like he is the darling of training camp that is going to be the disappearing darling. It concerns me because, and I'll tell you this, and Dom Capers says this, he says, listen, you can't give these guys a taste of the speed of the game until they get into the game. He said practice is not as fast as preseason games. Preseason games are not as fast as regular season games. If this Packers team, I can almost guarantee the coaches aren't ready to throw in Kamal Martin starting day one against Dalvin Cook. That would be a bad idea. So anyway, I've been a little bit, I don't want to be negative because I'm very happy he is practicing very well. But it is still practice. I think we have to be very careful because look what happened with Blake Martinez when they threw him out on the field against the Jacksonville Jaguars week 1. They had to back off from him immediately, even though he had showed so much. And he had a preseason. He had all the preseason. Kamal Martin will have 0 and practices only. So it's very good that he's practicing well. It's very good that he's showing out because, we do need a second guy for sure. But anyway, it was very interesting, Dom Capers' description of that. He, in no uncertain terms, when asked about the cornerbacks, in his case, because they've got, they're going to have a couple brand new cornerbacks. We'll talk about that for a little bit. Said, listen, they're doing what they're supposed to do. I'm glad that they're being disciplined. They're doing everything we asked them to do, but practice is not as fast as the preseason. Preseason is not as fast as the regular season. So that, again, becomes an opportunity because there are some guys on this team, the rookies that are going to be fielded potentially for the Minnesota Vikings when they get their final roster figured out. And those rookies on week 1, without any crowd to help them out, are going to have to go up against Davante Adams, Allen Lazard, whoever else might push Allen Lazard for the number 2, MVS, EQ, Kumaro, Reggie Begelton for that matter. It's going to be a very difficult for the Minnesota Vikings defensive backfield, who has a couple of very good, they've got still Harrison Smith and Anthony Harris. But that cornerback situation in particular, and potentially the lack of pass rush. Now, Pierce has opted out, so their defensive tackle, their defensive line, they are still looking for answers to some extent. But let's go through it. Now, since we don't have the depth chart, we'll have to go through it kind of in a linear fashion, sorted basically by the position group. You can see and I'll scroll through a little bit. You probably won't need to watch this because it is loaded with a lot of purple and yellow, and that kind of, I'm sure, makes some of you sick. Some of you, it might be like me. It's kind of like, I kind of feel like we got a good shot against the Vikings this year to double down on them again. But you can see the center position, they got 3 guys on. Garrett Bradbury with a disappointing, to be honest, season last year for them. I am going to go kind of through the old line a little bit quick. Down to guard, they've got 3 in. Elf line, of course, we know. Kyle Hinton and then Drew Samia, also, and this is a Vikings team that has been looking for years to try to solidify their O-line. And then the tackle position, of course, Aviante Collins, Rashad Hill, Brian O'Neill, Riley Reef, who we know, and then Udo. Round out that group. This is a Vikings team that is still trying to find answers and has consistently committed draft capital to the offensive line and has yet really found the answers I think that they're looking for against Zadarius Smith, Preston Smith, now Rashawn Gary potentially on the field at the same time. If you can get, I'm not going to go there, but then also potentially Christian Kirksey, who hopefully can cover. You've got Jefferson, who's a rookie, who I believe Kevin King will handle admirably, and then Jair Alexander on Adam Thielen. If we get a inside linebacker, be it an inside linebacker, a hybrid safety in Raven Green, who can cover tight ends coming out of the backfield, and we can handle Dalvin Cook in the run game, which I think we can. And the reason I think we can is they don't have kind of a 1-2 punch. And I think, as long as we don't let Dalvin Cook beat us to the edges, I think we'll be okay. I mean, he's a very good running back, no doubt about it. He's electrifying. But I think we can handle him, and that makes it very difficult for any offensive coordinator coming up against that Packers defense. If this Packers team can handle tight ends, Rudolph out of the backfield, I think it's going to be rough. So let's go ahead and talk about, of course, then you got to bring in a lot of cornerbacks because they're, you can see, look at the list right here. List kind of goes on and on. Boyd, Clark, I'll talk about Cameron Dantzler, Fields, Gladney, Harrison Hand, Holton Hill, Mike Hughes, of course, we know, Nate Metters. So Cameron Dantzler in particular is a guy that the Vikings are probably going to have to lean on. He is, again, he's long, but he's light. He is taller than Kevin King and lighter than Kevin King by like 10 pounds. Well, maybe not quite 10. So his length at 6'2", he ran a 4.64. Yeah, 4.64. His length at 6'2", against, in particular, I mean, number one, his length at 6'2" isn't going to help him much because he's going to have trouble with if he gets matched up with Davante Adams, he's going to have trouble even staying with him off the line. And Davante Adams is faster, and Davante Adams is far from the fastest wide receiver on this team. He just has the best release in the league. Then you add, if maybe he gets matched up against MVS, that's 6'4" with 4.3 speed. Maybe he gets matched up with Equanimeous St. Brown, that's 6'5" with 4.4 speed. I think Dantzler is going to be a guy that we hit early and often right out of the gate. So if I'm the Minnesota Vikings, and Dom Capers has been working specifically with, just in case you didn't catch this, he's been working specifically with the cornerbacks. He's been working with the defensive back group, but even more specifically with the cornerbacks, because that's where he came out of. That's where his coaching began. He did a lot of work with that in Pittsburgh. And the Minnesota Vikings really sound like they're kind of grasping at straws to me. You bring in Dom Capers, you know what the situation is through the whole offseason. You're going to have to rebuild that defensive back group. You've got a backbone in Harrison Smith and Harris. Yes, for sure. Those are some good players. But you also got a lot of work to do in a pass-heavy league. Guys like Jeff Gladney coming in. Had a meniscus repair, which again, if you know what a meniscus repair is, that's just the cushion between your knee joints, between the tibia and the femur. And he should be fine, but he's again another guy that if you put him out on the field against Aaron Rodgers and say a Devontae Adams or even an Allen Lazard, there should be opportunities for this Green Bay Packer team. Now, our tight ends might have a little bit of a struggle against the safety situation there. That's another way that you can really handle tight end work is if you have good safeties, and the Vikings have that. But in particular, this cornerback situation for the Minnesota Vikings does not look good at all. Defensively, to continue defensively, Stacey Killy, Adenigbo at defensive end also, Willekes and Wanham. Yarbrough is there and Zattel as well. This is a kind of a group of, outside of Daniel Hunter, who do they have? And they were hoping, Pierce would be in that at defensive tackle. They've got yet another group of, Mataafa we all know. But other than that, it's pretty much a group of hopefuls. So things look pretty rough on the defensive side. They look like it's going to be a major, I think, departure from what the Vikings were able to do in the past with Zimmer's double A-gap blitz in particular that was very effective. They're going to have difficulty doing it. They still got Anthony Barr. Eric Kendricks is still back there, so it is there potentially. But one of the things Mike Zimmer talked about was, getting creative with the pressure packages. That's part of the reason they brought in Dom Capers. And when you hear him say that, what I'm hearing if I'm reading the tea leaves is, listen, we know we're not going to be able to do the same things we've been able to do in the past. We're not going to get the push up front. And when you have that double A-gap blitz, that is a very important part of that, is either taking up those blockers to keep those A-gap guys clean and or being able to muddy the waters with those same defensive tackles. They're just not going to have those guys. So I think they're going to struggle to get the pressures that we've seen out of the Vikings in the recent past. And you can see Blake Lynch, Hardy Nickerson, Eric Wilson, Austin Cutting's the long snapper. It's just kind of a group of hopefuls for the Vikings. And we know on offense, they did bring in Jefferson. A lot of us were disappointed we weren't able to get him. But let me tell you this right now. The reports out of training camp for the Minnesota Vikings are that Kirk Cousins is scoring on this defense right now. So if that tells you anything, generally the defenses kind of have a leg up. Now you look at the Packers offense. Part of that has to do with the fact that the Packers defense hasn't had Z on the field for like 4 days, 3-4 days. But this is going to be where Kirk Cousins, if he really wants to earn his money, he is going to have to outplay himself from past years. He's had good games against the Vikings in the past, but it is going to be difficult for him, I think, with the Packers pass rush to connect with. On the one hand, you're going to have Jefferson as a new receiver. You're going to have Adam Thielen potentially with Jair Alexander. I'd have Jair Alexander trail him with the caveat that, Jair, if you start getting gassed, you have to let me know because we're not going to have the preseason to get you into game shape, and we need to know if you're struggling a little bit, you have to let me know. But we'll see how the Packers handle that. I think they can handle it by just manning up on the perimeter with Jair Alexander and King, and then potentially if Thielen moves around a little bit, you can follow him a little bit, but. Other than right now, Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen, I might even throw Kirk Cousins, who has thrown the ball quite well against the Green Bay Packers. the defense isn't going to have the crowd noise. Aaron Rodgers is going to have that hard snap count. They're going to have young guys on that defensive line. They're going to have a lot of guys who have not heard that snap count before. I think there's a real opportunity for the Packers to hit the ground running against the Minnesota Vikings. I just thought I would check in, and I will probably do one of these on the Bears, one of these on the Detroit Lions as well. I poked into the Bears a little bit just because I was curious. We've heard that Roquan Smith can't cover Jimmy Graham, and we're trying to parse out whether that means Jimmy Graham suddenly became fleet of foot or Roquan Smith is just not going to be the guy that the Chicago Bears hoped he'd be. And then in Detroit, bringing on Swift and with Stafford coming back healthy, I think that offense is kind of ready to rip right now. The defense probably being the biggest question mark there. But I did want to jump in real quick and maybe do some work that I thought you guys would be interested in but would have very little interest in doing yourself. Hey, that's what I'm here for. This was a little painful, but at the same time, I got to tell you, I don't know how to characterize this, but watching Mike Zimmer, man, I don't know. He wasn't shaved. He wasn't, part of it is he just came out of practice, but he looked haggard, to be honest. His answers to the questions, if I was parsing them out, made me think that he knows this is going to be a very difficult year, for his defense. He's not going to be able to lean on just doing the stuff he's been able to do in the past that's worked so well for him. And then on offense, it sounds like he understands that, they got Dalvin Cook, but Kirk Cousins is going to have to outplay himself, and they still don't have offensive line answers. They're hopeful. But again, Zimmer, I think, understands that this is going to be a very difficult coaching year for him. Then you add to it the whole COVID situation. And that's only going to make it worse for teams that are in retooling, if you're going to use Aaron Rodgers' terms. I think the Vikings may be more in a rebuilding mode where they've kind of locked down a couple of their guys, but they're pretty much rebuilding around a framework from the safety position on defense and Anthony Barr and Danielle Hunter right now. Well, and Kendrick's in there, of course, as well. But at any rate, the signs are positive. Of course, you go up against the Minnesota Vikings at U.S. Bank. You never take anything for granted. And the Vikings, if I can talk about the Vikings only doing it in practice, the Packers have only done it in practice too, and that's why I'm starting to get, honestly, I'm tired of hearing the hype over Martin. I'm happy for him. I hope it works out, but he's about to hit the NFL football field, and it is going to be a very, very different reads. The reads will be different. Everything's coming faster. The movement is going to be different. And I think we need to be careful about this poor rookie running back that we have so many high hopes for. Part of the reason being we've had such bad play there, and you get Oren Burks in, and he can't even seem to make the field. And really has not done much yet again this year. So again, I'm more than happy for him if he can make a play for that, shoulder to shoulder with Christian Kirksey when we need him. And if he's a thumper and he can show some coverage ability, very happy for him. And hopefully he gets a chance to get worked in a little bit at a time. I'm very happy for the kid. But I'm also happy that the Packers have a veteran in Christian Kirksey on the field as well, because I don't trust Oren Burks right now. And again, in just a couple of weeks, we will have to be running out on the field at U.S. Bank, which isn't an easy place to play, even if the crowd isn't going to be there. And hopefully we can keep this team from sounding out that stupid horn too much, but we will see. It's been a very interesting off-season. It's been fun to share it with you guys. Tomorrow is Thursday the 27th. We will officially be 2 weeks to the day away from the kickoff of the 2020 NFL season. Knock on wood, if nothing happens. So I thought I would throw that in as well to close this episode of Go Deep. I look forward to hearing you, to talking to you again next week. I don't know. I probably will mix in some other stuff with the Keep Your Enemies Closer kind of stuff. Because I'll have plenty of time to get in these episodes before we play the Vikings. And of course, I started out with the Vikings, so even if it bleeds into the next week, the week of our week 2 game, all we'll get is more information about how these guys play. So even if the Bears get out there and I don't get it done before they play their first game, that's fine, because we'll get to see and we'll get to discuss where they are actually at, which is something that we just really don't know. And that, again, is why I'm glad the Packers have veterans in most of the critical positions, and we don't have a situation like the Minnesota Vikings right now. Very glad for Jair Alexander, Kevin King. I'm happy that Josh Jackson is showing out, Shandon Sullivan, and then even a few guys behind him. The Packers need to get younger at the cornerback position. They've kind of admitted that by not bringing back Tramon Williams, but then you still have, as of right now, Tramon Williams in the wings if anything happens. So I think the Packers in a very good position. Well, guys, I'm going to put this up before I have to go live today, Wednesday, the 26th. Hope you enjoy it. We will talk to you guys again soon.
Packer Nation worldwide.